Hey, the MCU reboot project announced with fanfare half a decade ago and in development for over 10 years has just been quietly removed from Marvel's release calendar. No press, no updates, just a quiet and unceremonious removal of Blade. But thanks to recent reporting from thatparkplace.com as well as Geeks and Gamers discussion, we may now have the inside details on why Marvel did this. And people, everybody, this report is accurate. If this is accurate, it's clear that Marvel has entirely lost its way. So we're going to take a closer look at what happened to Blade and why it's so utterly absurd and what it means for the future of Marvel and specifically for Blade. So, welcome back to Views and Hughes of Jennifer News. This is Jerome Hughes. We're going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start with the discussion from DDay Cobra as well as RK Outposts, and I'm going to play this interview for you, and I will have detailed analysis afterwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into
Do
it.
you think that if they just on the surface, if they were to announce a Wesley Snipes Old Man Blade movie, do you think we're looking at $1 billion film just on the surface based on the premise?
I don't know about $1 billion.
Cameos would probably have to help it push it. Cameos from like Ryan Reynolds or something.
Because it would have to be an R-rated, right? So like Deadpool and Wolverine, 1.5 billion. I don't know if a Blade movie, like Blade 4 or whatever, Old Man Blade, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if that gets to $1 billion, but I certainly think it makes a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if $1 billion would quite be right, but especially coming off the high of that, of people seeing Wesley Snipes' Blade and be like, why don't we just do this? And it should be very simple. It should be relatively easy. It shouldn't be something that costs $300 million. It should just be Blade killing a bunch of other vampires. And as long as you have a semi-serviceable story that doesn't revolve around Blade being told what to do by women, it's going to be fine. Like that's all people want at this point from that. And the fact that they can't get this figured out is wild. This came out yesterday, Jeremy, I think a little bit after we got done streaming. This announcement, it's not even like an announcement from Marvel that, hey, by the way, we're delaying Blade. Hey, Disney's saying we're delaying Blade. It just is like, well, they quietly removed it from the release schedule and replaced it with something else. Marvel Studios' Blade removed from 2025 release schedule. Disney dates Predator Badlands instead. And, originally, this got announced the same weekend that I met you, Jeremy. 2019 San Diego Comic-Con. I believe that was July of 2019 is when Kevin Feige stood up on that stage and announced Mahershala Ali was going to be Blade and they're going to do a Blade movie.
I remember that because of the fact that this came off of his Grammy win with the movie. I forgot what it was, but not Grammy, Oscar win. But Marshall Ali basically had an interview stated where he talked to Kevin Feige that he wants to be Blade. I mean, mighty arrogant and everything, in my opinion, but that's what it is. So Marshall Ali wanted to be Blade, and as we all know, so many people love Wesley Snipes' Blade, and a lot of people are looking forward to see how Marshall Ali will play Blade in this context. But here we have also an example of the business side of it, where actually fast forward to today or like this year, seeing Blade in the Deadpool Wolverine movie, Wesley Snipes version of it, which is the original Blade. And the fact of the matter is, seems like people want the original Blade even further. So let's go ahead and get right back into it. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel as well.
That was 5 years ago. The movie had been delayed time and time again. It was scheduled for November of 2025, which would have been 6 years since they announced it. Now looking more like 7 if it ever comes out at all. It's just sad that you can't get this straight. A guy who really wants to play this hero, obviously, or he wouldn't still be hanging around. And Marvel just hasn't been able to get it right.
And as I think we've all said it several times, Mahershala Ali is a fantastic actor. This still isn't the right project for him, in my opinion. But as you said, the dude continues to stay on the project. He wants to play this role. He definitely wants to do it. But I don't know why anybody would want to be involved in this franchise at this point in time. It's clear that they have no vision. They have no idea what's going on. And the masses of people, if they want to see a Blade movie, they want to see a Wesley Snipes Blade movie.
I actually got answers for that later on after this interview discussion. Please stay tuned.
It's just that simple. It's really that simple. It's not any more complicated than that. And so I think this movie ultimately gets I just think we're never going to see it. I think they're going to axe it completely.
I think if it wasn't a black character with a notable, like, respected black actor, it would have been canceled already.
Yeah.
To be honest, with like all the problems that they're having. But I feel like it feels like they can't do that because of that, if that makes sense. And I do think that Deadpool and Wolverine made the situation worse, because just with that little bit of Blade, people were like, fuck yeah, just give us this. Why can't we just have this?
Yeah. And like I talked about it like the first time I remember seeing Mahershala Ali in anything was, I think, House of Cards.
As Remy, yeah, he's good.
Remy Denton. Yeah, he was fantastic in that show. And he was in Luke Cage.
Cottonmouth.
Yeah, he was really good in Luke Cage, and he's been in several like award-winning movies and things like that. The guy's a great actor, and it just kind of shows you, like, when they have a project that has no potential, they will make sure that they push that forward. No, now they have a project where, again, even though I think the majority of fans don't want to see a Blade movie without Wesley Snipes, you at least do have a very good actor in this role. But
Yep, you can't get it right at all. So, as you all know from the very beginning, development on the Blade reboots began as early as 2013. Now, during phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that was a time where Marvel was riding high on its early successes. Fast forward to 2019, and Blade was officially announced alongside several other titles, including Eternals at the time. And while some of those other movies came and went, Blade was the only one that fans really wanted to see. Now, Blade had a potential to tap into the darker, greedier side of Marvel, something that audiences have been craving for. Yet, despite this pent-up demand, Blade kept hitting delay after delay. Now, it just wasn't any movie, people. It was Blade, a fan-favorite character who helped out Marvel movies on the map back in the late 90s. But here's the thing. Marvel went all in on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, not only on screen, but behind the scenes as well. And look, this is affected Blade majorly, and this isn't to say that representation in media is a bad thing, but Marvel took it to an extreme that it started to interfere with storytelling, with Blade specifically suffering the most. And Blade was set to be a supporting character in his own movie, playing a second fiddle to the cast of strong, independent women, several of whom would have been portrayed as LGBTQ characters, none of whom would need to be any rescuing from a man. And here's a kicker. This movie it was still going to be called Blade, and you just couldn't make this up at all. Blade was being sidelined in his own story, all right? And that's not all. I mean, take it from the former X-Men 97 showrunner Bo DeMaio, as is reported from thatpopplace.com, who explained how to do Blade right in the simplest terms. His vision was to do a John Wick style movie, mobsters, vampires, and greedy backdrop, and Blade taking them down with style. Think about it. John Wick had a budget of $20 million and pulled off with finesse. And why is it so hard for Marvel to even keep Blade simple in the first place? Because people want to see Blade slay vampires, and that's it. That's the kind of movie that you could script in a weekend, a film in a month, and deliver audiences as a satisfying action flick. But instead of sticking to what would make sense for Blade, they've been bogged down by a convoluted story filled with social agendas, layers upon layers of unnecessary complexity, and an obsession with weaving Blade into larger, failing multiverse saga. Now, what's the real reason that Blade pulled? Well, according to the report from thatpopplace.com, it's because the story of Blade was disconnected from the rest of the multiverse saga. That's right. The executives at Marvel wanted this Blade reboot to be tied directly into their multiverse storyline. Now, let me ask y'all this question. Who here asked for Blade to be tied into the multiverse? No one. What fans wanted was a simple standalone Blade saga that would focus on him and his battles and with the undead. That's what made Blade cool in the first place. And thanks to Kevin Feige, Marvel would have been it would have been a big hit that Marvel needed, but instead it sacrificed the standalone stories like Blade that people want to see in favor of more of this multiverse nonsense that the audience is clearly growing tired of. Now we're getting more disconnected movies that are so wrapped up in the multiverse that they lose sight of what makes a great story. And the report continues, even with Marvel, with the worst news. Marvel apparently has a whole Midnight Suns arc planned for Blade, one that's supposed to tie him to the supernatural side of the MCU. Now, this would mean that Blade wouldn't just be dealing with vampires, he'd be tangled up with the likes of Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, and Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Now, I ask you, how many of you are actually clamoring to see Blade title with Agatha? No, none of you. Exactly. And yet, according to Marvel and Kevin Feige, the only thing keeping Mashallah Ali, who's been set to play Blade, attached to this project is that Marvel has set up Midnight Suns arc, and they essentially forcing Blade into an interconnected web of subplots that nobody wanted or even asked for, dragging him down along, aligning him with characters and storylines that simply don't fit. In fact, they're pushing Ali to stay committed to the project that does seem to resonate with him, with fans, or even general audiences. That underscores how broken the Marvel machine really is. And let's not forget the culprits here, the architects of this downfall, none other than Kevin Feige and ultimately Disney's Bob Iger. Now, I know some people still hold on to the notion that Kevin Feige is this big shot creative genius, but let me tell you something. MCU's success is not due to to Feige alone. He was just a part of a larger team of creators and storytellers who knew how to build something compelling and actually interconnected. The MCU's fall, however, that's all on Feige. When he took full creative control with WandaVision, the MCU started losing its way, and those core architects that originally shaped the MCU are long gone. And what we're left here with is a mess, a multiverse that doesn't make sense, storylines that go nowhere, and fans who have completely checked out of Blade and other promising Marvel projects. But the multiverse saga has been one failure after another. What audiences want now are fresh, simple, standalone stories, and they don't want convoluted timelines and tangled plots that span multiple movies, and shows. And yet Marvel keeps pushing more and more of this multiverse chaos, bringing down Blade with this colossal misjudgment of what fans actually want, and it's ruining the brand. And I say this as a concern, not only as a concerned fan, but someone who knows and values Marvel and Blade and as cultural touchstones. But and here's the kicker: Marvel isn't stopping with the multiverse. They're about to dive headfirst into Midnight Sun saga, trying to tie Blade to Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, and all these other stupid characters that Marvel's trying to force on the audiences. And these aren't fan favorites, and they don't even have the draw that Blade does. In fact, the ratings disaster that with Agatha proves how poorly these spinoffs are performing. Now, why Marvel and Kevin Feige think Blade will actually benefit from being connected to these floundering series is beyond me. But let's be honest, at this point, the only hope for Blade and Marvel is that if they make some big changes. Kevin Feige and is not listening to the fans, along with Bob Iger. They're making movies for a small niche audience rather than the general public who want action, excitement, and memorable characters. And Marvel's falling into the same trap that's led to so many of Hollywood's recent failures, prioritizing social agendas over strong storytelling and compelling characters. Now, if they keep this up, Blade and the MCU will end up as footnotes in cinematic history rather than a powerhouse that they once were. But this Blade reboot fiasco is yet another nail in Marvel's coffin. Removing Blade from the release calendar, shackling Blade to a multiverse no one asked for, and insisting on connecting Blade with lackluster unwanted spinoffs is just the exact opposite of what would bring audiences back. Now, the only path forward for Blade and Marvel now is to give fans what they exactly want. Standalone stories that are simple, thrilling, and character-driven. And for Blade, this means embracing the darker side of Marvel, going for that gritty vampire slaying action style that made Blade a hit in the first place. And forget about the multiverse. Forget about the whole Midnight Suns. Let Blade be Blade. But you know what? Until, the leadership changes, though, I'm afraid we'll be left with more misfires and more delays, more missed opportunities. So Blade fans, hang in there, because if history has taught us anything, is that things can turn around once the right people are back in charge. But until then, we can only hope that, Wesley Snipes is still healthy, still living, and still stays in shape, and comes out to play the Blade that deserves to come back in a way that honors the legacy. All right, so let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts or details you might have this particular topic. If you enjoy what I shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, and share this video far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.